I need to start with some good news for everyone in the room. Everyone in here has won a trip. We're all going to the Caribbean. You're all going to an all-inclusive resort. I'm going to be there. Oh, I don't want to go anymore. No, I'm going to be there. You show up, let's say, that evening, had a long day of travel. I'm in the lobby, and I said, hey, head on up to your room. Everything's been set. Get a good night's sleep. It's full day tomorrow. Meet me in the lobby, 7:30 sharp. 7:30 comes the next morning. You come into the lobby, and there I am. I said, all right, listen, here's what we've got for you today. Outside these doors, we've got tour buses, excursions. They are full-day excursions, so you're going to be gone all day on this trip. There is a tour guide standing next to each bus. Make sure you pick the right one. Y'all have fun. So you walk out the door, and there they are. All the buses are lined up, and there's a tour guide standing next to each one. What's the first thing that you do? You're going to go up to the tour guide, and you're going to ask him that very important question, where are you going? Well, let's assume that now I'm a tour guide, and I'm standing next to the bus. I say, well, I thought we'd go see the ancient ruins, tallest building in the world, and the downtown aquarium. And you say, well, that sounds like a good day to me. I'm on. And so you hop on the bus. Kevin mentioned this previously with the opening. A little time out here. When people hear something good in the opening, they'll jump on the bus. All right, back to the bus. So you're on the bus, and Russ is driving because I'm the tour guide. And I'm driving and driving. Hour goes by, hour and a half goes by, 2 hours go by. I haven't said anything. And you start elbowing the person next to you saying, where's this ancient ruins? I thought we were going to see the ancient ruins first. What's up with this? He hasn't shown us anything. How long is this going to take to get there? I don't know. Ask him. Russ, hey, bus driver. Where's those ancient ruins? Oh, ancient ruins? Yeah, we passed those about 10 miles ago. Are you already on TripAdvisor telling everyone to don't get Russ as your tour guide if you go on this tour? You would, wouldn't you? What kind of a tour guide am I if that's the way that I treated you? Pretty poor one. Second question, how do you feel right now? You're on my bus all day. Do you feel like a prisoner? You ever felt like a prisoner in a presentation? Kevin already talked about it. You're on the bus, and now you're trapped. You're stuck on my bus, and from what you can see with me up there at the helm, you got a lousy tour guide. When it comes to constructing the body of your presentation, this is the number one rule. Your audience needs to be able to follow you. That's it. That should be first and foremost. If the audience has no idea how you're maneuvering through all this data, they'll be lost. If you were on a bus, on a tour, and you knew that the tour driver, the bus driver, was lost, how would you feel now? Not only are you a prisoner on this bus all day, but now the bus doesn't even know where it's going. That would be double feelings that you have in here. We need to always think about how we structure. And so I'm going to give you in this segment a couple of thoughts on how you can structure the body of your presentation, but let it always come back to that number one rule that the audience needs to be able to follow you. Kevin and I listened to quite a few presentations depending on what industry we're working with, whether it's oil and gas or IT or beverages. Whatever the company is that we're working with, they all have different businesses, and we listened to some of their internal, what we call TLAs. Everyone knows what that is? No? 3-letter acronyms. Every company's got them. They got their 3-letter acronyms for everything. And so we oftentimes don't even know what they're talking about. But can we follow them? And if we can follow them, then it's good. Now, you probably noticed that each of these segments we're giving to you, we're targeting right around about 9 minutes. Why is that? Well, there's something special about a 9-minute presentation. This is based on research, and here's what I'll tell you about the 9 minutes. A study was done by the Journal of Chemical Engineering, and they gave engineering students clickers. And the little clicker would do nothing more than plot a data point in time. And they gave it to all the students listening to a professor lecture for an hour. And they said, we want you to click this every time you realize you just zoned out and you weren't listening. Okay, I can do that. Got a fast computer because I'm going to be clicking this a lot. So they start clicking this thing every time they zoned out and zoned back in. Then they went back and plotted all that data on a timeline. You want to guess when the first universal checkout was of everyone's brain? 30 seconds. 30 seconds. The next one showed up at 5 minutes. And then the next one showed up at 9 minutes. And they continued to come every 4 minutes until he got about halfway through with the lecture, and then they came every 2 minutes, and then everyone came right back into the presentation when the professor said what? In closing, what? It sounds like he's almost done. Everyone's attention came back at that point. What Kevin and I have found that if you'll follow the models that we teach in this book, you can develop presentations that range from 30 seconds to 2 hours. But you have to follow this process. So it can be any length. What we recommend is that if you're given a project update, 9 minutes can sometimes be extremely effective. If you work in a very large corporation, you probably sit through a lot of conference meetings and someone comes in and gives a project update. How long is the meeting? Well, we got an hour in here and we're getting 2 project updates. So they immediately do the math, and how long is each one going to be? 35. They always take more than they should, right? But it's going to be about, they're dividing it in 2. I challenge you to think about how could I give a 9-minute presentation. Here's why we find 9-minute very effective. 30-second dip doesn't happen when you follow what Kevin just gave you. The Kaba formula, you won't have a dip there. So the next one you have to worry about is the 5-minute mark. The 5-minute mark, if you do what we call a transition, you won't lose them there either. And then at 9 minutes, in conclusion, you're not going to lose them there either. So if you want to improve the attentiveness of the audience, I challenge you to do a 9-minute presentation. So let me give you some of the formulas as to how you can construct the body of the presentation, and this works for those 9-minute presentations. The first one we call problem solution. This is for correcting some sort of an action. You spend the first portion of the presentation after your opening. You notice each one has an open and a close. Kaba is the open. We haven't given you the formula yet for the bottom. We'll get there. We talk about the problem. We set it up. We give them the information they need. Remember, we're tapping into 2 things. Logically, we want them to understand the problem, and we want them to have a certain feeling. And the feeling we want them to have about the problem is that it needs to change because it's causing anxiety, tension, frustration, whatever it is. If we attach a feeling to it, they're more likely to listen to the second half of the presentation. The transition moment, there are different techniques that you can use for those transitions. Simplest form is say first, next, finally. The transition I would recommend here is I would summarize the problem, say you've heard about the problem, now let's look at the solution. Attention comes right back up. That's at the 5-minute mark. So when they're about to dip, you toss the transition out. That's the problem, let's look at the solution. You're not going to lose them, they'll stay right there with you. So this is problem solutions for correcting an action. There's another one that we use for usually involved with future plans, and we call it the what, why, how. This also has a transitional moment right around that 5-minute mark. What, why, how? This is how you could set this up. If I'm speaking to my executives, I report to them, and I'm proposing that we do something. I say, here's what we're going to do. Here's why we have selected this course of action. Once I get them on board, now I make the transition and say, here's how we're going to do that. And I look into the future, and I tell them how we're going to do that. We call it the what, why, how. This works with engineering as well. They say, here's what the problem is. Here's what the problem is. Here's why we experienced that problem. Here's how we're going to make a corrective action so it doesn't happen again. It's a form of triage, but if you do triage for whatever your job is and you have to present afterwards on here's what happened, this is a great format to use. The final one we call, it's for reviewing, but we call it the good, bad, new. And if you're a manager or a leader, this can be extremely effective because you can use this with people who report to you as well. I'll have casual conversations with people who report to me, and even if it's just in the hallway, and I'll say, so what's been going well? What's been going well this week? Oh, I did this. Great. Is there anything that I can do for you? Anything that you're struggling with? Anything like that? I'm focusing on the bad. Oh, well, yeah, well, you weren't around, and so I had to make a decision on this. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. Okay, well, let's do this. Going forward, if I'm not around, then let's have you do this, this, or this. That was the new. Good, bad, new. We teach this for 9-minute presentations, and I want to give you a little inside tip. You can take all 3 of these, put them in your back pocket, and use them for what we call spontaneous presentations. You show up, and you're there in the meeting, and someone says, oh, I didn't know you were going to be here today. Hey, Manny, I'm going to let you go ahead and present on this project. Since you're here today, give me about 10 minutes, and you can come up, and I'll give you about 10 minutes. And Manny wasn't planning on speaking that day, right? He wasn't planning, and so he's got to come up with something. He's got 10 minutes to build a presentation in his head. I would suggest you use one of these 3. Understand that your audience is following you. They're on your bus, and you're taking them on a tour. and you do not want them to be lost. Thank you.